welcome to the program. Today's question is, in today's economy, what are the major challenges of buying or selling a business? My name's Jim Beno. I'm a seasoned business broker, also known as an M&A advisor. As a reminder, I do not give legal advice or tax advice on this video, but let's jump in to the question. In today's economy, what are the major challenges? Well, I'd like to start off with and say that there's always issues or challenges going on within the economy that can create issues for buying and selling a business. Over the last few years, we had COVID, a global pandemic. I mean, that literally crushed the M&A industry. That also caused supply chain issues. Supply chain issues were a big deal. We had some of the business owners were running at twice their raw materials because what normally they could get in a week now is taking 4 to 6 weeks to get, and sometimes they were worried about even getting the raw materials. So supply chain issues were a thing the last few years. The COVID has also led into labor shortages. Labor shortages is still an issue today, and I think that's mainly an issue with those labor with people making $20 or less an hour. There's definitely a shortage of workers, and you can see that. Like if you go out to eat, for instance, you might have a half an hour wait, and you sit down at the restaurant and you see, wait, there's 10 empty tables. Why did I have to wait a half an hour? Well, you had to wait a half an hour, not so much because the restaurant couldn't handle the people wanting to eat. It's because they didn't have the staff to be able to support all those people wanting to eat. So labor shortages is still an issue today, but really the biggest issue that's affecting buyers and sellers is the rising interest rates today. We are in an environment where interest rates have drastically gone up in the last year and a half, and the interest rate, the increases have drastically slowed, but there is no sign of it stopping or going the other way. And I'll give you an example. 2 years ago, I was selling deals through SBA financing, and the buyer could get 5 to 5.5% interest. Today, on an SBA note, it's 10 to 11% interest for a buyer note on an SBA. SBA terms are usually 10 years in length, and what a lot of people don't realize is most of them are variable, meaning they adjust every quarter. So even if you locked in at 6%, and the interest rates are now 10%, those buyers, a lot of them are paying 10% because it's adjustable rates. And so I kind of want to spend a little time and talk about how this is bad for the buyers, and it's also bad for the sellers. I'm going to give you an example. Let's say there's a business that, and I'll use two examples. So one for a lower mid-market and one for a Main Street business. So let's say the business is selling for $6 million through $5 million SBA note and $1 million of equity at closing. Or on a Main Street business, it's 600,000 selling price, 100,000 of owner equity injection, and a $500,000 SBA note. Month on a 10-year note, these are all 10-year notes at 5% interest. That $5 million note, that monthly payment is $53,000. That same $5 million note at 10 years at 10% interest is $66,000 a month. That's a difference of $13,000 a month more over 10 years. So if you're a Main Street, you just divide that by 10. The $500,000 note would be at 5% would be $5,300 a month. At 10%, it would be $6,600. But basically, over the course of 10 years, you're talking about the buyer paying on a $5 million note, they're going to pay $1.56 million more because the interest rates have doubled. On that $500,000 note, they're going to pay $156,000 more in interest. To give you another perspective on that is, let's take those payments. If the payment we set on a $5 million note at 10 years at 5% was 53,000, and if we wanted to keep that same payment of 53,000 over 10 years, that note would have to be reduced basically from 5 million to 4 million. Or on a Main Street business, that note would have to go from 500,000 to 400,000 to keep the same monthly payment as what it would be at 5% interest if the interest rates were now 10%. So I've got some bad news for buyers and I've got some bad news for sellers. For the buyers out there, um, the just because you're paying double the interest rate than you could have gotten 2 years ago, that seller is not taking 20% less for their business. They're not letting you, they're not going to say, okay, we're going to take a $400,000 note instead of a 500,000. You're going to have to pay more to get that business. I have some bad news for you, Mr. Seller, as well too. That on that lower mid market deal, we talked about the interest being $1.56 million of extra interest paid over 10 years. That buyer is not paying an extra 1.656 million to buy your business. So, a lot of times the financing won't even support it. They have, if the business is the debt service coverage ratio, especially on a Main Street business, that $500,000 note, an extra $156,000 is a lot of money. And, the bank might not be comfortable with what the debt service coverage ratio is. So, there's going to be some compromise. The sellers are going to get a little less for their business, I think, if they would have sold when interest rates were at 5%. But unfortunately, the buyers are going to have to pay a little more because they're paying at a higher interest rate. The other challenge to think about is if you're the seller, is that 2 years ago, buyers really didn't have much of an option with their money. What are they going to stick it in a CD and get a 0.5% for a year? Now there's a lot of places that will do, you can do a 3 month CD and get a 5% return. I mean, it's not as good as owning a business, but it does open up other options for buyers with their money. So those are some things to think about in today's economy that impact the buyer and the seller. That's it for today. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's video, please make sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel. I'm going to have other educational videos that if you're looking to buy or sell a business, you'll find very helpful. As a reminder, I don't give legal advice or tax advice on these videos. If you want to contact me directly, you can reach me at Jim Beno at businessbrokerexpertsinc.com. That's JIMBENO at businessbrokerexpertsinc.com. Thanks for staying to the end. I have a little reward for you. I have a couple bonuses for you. Just click on the link below and find out how to get your 2 free bonus reports. Just click on the link below and get your 2 free bonus reports. Thank you.